tell me when.
In 5, 4, 3.
All right, I want you to imagine the beach. How many of you have been to the beach? Okay, we've all been to the beach. So imagine the beach. We probably go to like Florida or maybe South Carolina, but we see the beach and we see the kids running around, the loud noises, we're reading their book, catching some waves. Well, that's not really the beach I'm talking about. I'm talking about the beach that you see in a sandals commercial. The white sand, the bed on the sand, it's got the curtains all flowing in the wind. That's the kind of beaches you're going to find in the Philippines. These beaches have the best views. They have turquoise water. It's crystal clear. Every day you might get a little light rain shower, but it's so refreshing. They're going to have lagoons, mountains, so many beautiful things to look at. And this is just one of the hundreds of beaches in the Philippines. I'd like to thank you for coming tonight before we go any further. Thank you everyone who's here and Professor Wallace. Very glad to have you and love to tell you more about the Philippines. Now before we go any further, I want to tell you a little bit about where it is. I know I'm not very good with geography, but it's going to be over here, this little grouping of islands, right underneath China and north of Indonesia. So it's about 7,000 islands, only 800 are inhabited, but they're over in Southeast Asia. And normally we think of right here in the Atlantic Ocean as being Hurricane Alley, but something that they experience over here in the Pacific Ocean is typhoons. And that's something that we don't hear a lot about, but it really is a big deal over there. Now, in 2013, Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines and it caused so much destruction. It was the most devastating storm in the country's history. The government was really not prepared to deal with this kind of devastation, so it really took a lot of help from outside nations to bring the country out of this hole. When all this happened, the government declared a state of calamity, and it really told the world that this is a big problem and we're going to need more help than we can do ourselves. So 40 countries stepped in and offered over almost $1 billion in aid and rescue mission workers and so much help that the Philippines, they came out with this thank you ad campaign that was posted in the New York Times. It was in Times Square. It was in Paris, England, and Brussels. They also launched a social media campaign, #PHThankYou, and they really just wanted the world to know that they were so thankful. The Filipino people are super grateful and super friendly to other nations, so they really just wanted to let everyone know how thankful they were that they were back on the rise and they were going to be strong again. So what this did for them is it boosted their tourism like crazy. People saw these billboards and the ad campaign and got them talking about the Philippines. So their tourism really boosted, and it really started people talking about the Philippines, started about the beach, about all the things that they had to offer there. Now, like I said before, it's over 7,000 islands. You can't see them all because some are a lot smaller than is going to be visible on this map, but only 800 are inhabited. Many of them are very small and can be visited from any of these beaches that you would go to. There's over 100 million people with many, many different dialects of language, but primarily they're going to speak Tagalog, which is the Filipino language, or some sort of dialect of Tagalog, and then as well as English. The Filipino economy is the 39th largest in the world market, and that really is thanks to everything that came after that typhoon. Before the typhoon, nobody was really talking about the Philippines. They really weren't a player in the world market. So this really pushed them forward and got them thinking about all the potential that they could have. In their schools, they really wanted to make sure that their students had the chance to compete in this world market, and they had a chance to move the Philippines forward. So they started pushing for more English education. They wanted English to become the #1 language, not losing that culture of Tagalog, but really just being able to communicate across borders. Their largest exports are electronics and semiconductors, but it's also good to know that they have a lot of fashion merchandise projects. They do a lot of accessories and jewelry and shoes for very popular companies, very high fashion labels, so that's quite interesting from a country in Southeast Asia. They are named in the top 10 growing economies, and they're really being talked about, especially in 2015, as one of the countries to watch. They're supposed to do a lot of great things in 2015, and they're really going to be on the rise. Now, if you're thinking about traveling to the Philippines, there's a couple things you should know. If you're planning on staying longer than 30 days, you will need a visa. Not sure if you're planning on staying quite that long, but good to know. You're not going to need any special vaccinations. What you get in America as a citizen is going to be enough. Their currency is called the Philippine peso, and you actually are not allowed to travel with more than 10,000 Philippine pesos. Not that you would need that many, but as a security measure, they do not like tourists to have more than that, just for your protection and safety. This is called the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, and it's actually in Metro Manila, which is the capital of the Philippines. It's a real hot spot for business, and a lot of travel and tourism goes on there. It's a really big city, and it's actually a metropolitan area comparable to Chicago or New York. Not quite as up to date, but they are getting there. As with any foreign travel, you're going to have the risk of pickpocketing and getting lost and maybe getting gypped by a cab driver or something like that. But you're not going to have any real gang problems or anything like that as you might in other Southeastern Asia or Southern America countries. Now, the business culture is going to be important if you're doing business or a business trip over there. One thing you need to know is that their dress is very conservative, much like what you would see in an American business culture. The women are going to wear pantsuits or high-cut dresses. It's all going to be very conservative. Usually the shoulders are going to be covered, pretty much what you'd see here. They have a very Southeastern culture about their business. They are very pleasant people. They're not going to have a negative disposition very often. So whereas Americans are very emotional and expressive sometimes, they are going to always have a smile on and be very pleasant in their disposition. So what's important about that is you need to make sure that you're not reading too much into their body language, maybe a little bit deceiving on how they actually feel. One of their biggest things that is started as a family unit is called Pakiki Sama, and it's really the idea of a group and a knit community. So teamwork is going to be really important to them in their company. It's something that they always want everybody to be involved, nobody lagging back, and no one really dominating the conversation at that team level. Now, as long as, with the pleasant people, they're not going to say no very often. So if you're getting a lot of yeses, a lot of nods, you really want to make sure that any contract work that's being done, you're going to write down, get those specifics in order, because they're probably not going to say no out loud. They're going to want to see it in writing and tell you then what adjustments they want to make. More about the business culture. This is actually a cityscape in Manila, Metro Manila, and it's really, really beautiful. It's very comparable to New York or Chicago, something we'd see there. But that really goes to show you how big of a city it is. Management organization, like I said before, they really like that team environment, but they also want a strong leader to step forward and lead the team. And they expect the team to respect the leader as well as the leader be a strong leader on that team. Now, with their meetings, you may set a meeting time at 10 a.m. They may not start till 11 or 12. This is because they really value their relationships, and they're going to want to have tea, chat, get to know you, really build a rapport, maybe exchange some gifts before they actually start the meeting. They want to know you personally before they do business with you. As far as women in the Filipino workplace, it's going to be about the same as America. They do respect their women. There's no sexism going on in the business place. It's going to be pretty much the same as America. You're expected to show up and perform just like your male cohorts. Now, as far as having a little fun, you definitely want to go here. It's called Villa Escudero, and it's actually a resort. This is just a restaurant in the resort. The restaurant is actually in a waterfall, so you eat and have a nice time with your family, and the waterfall's right there for you to view. It's very much of a jungle atmosphere, but the resort is going to be very Americanized, very 5-star, white sheets, very clean, lots and lots of food. Filipino people are very big on delicious food, so that's a great place you definitely want to check out while you're there. Now, El Nido is actually 45 beaches across different islands, and it is in Palau province, and it's something that you want to check out because they have been named the #1 beach getaway numerous times in travel publications. So that's really something you want to check out. Like I said before, the lagoons, there's spelunking in the caves, the cliffs, the white sand beaches. That's something that you definitely want to check out. The beaches are absolutely incredible. And then my last place that you want to check out is going to be Leyte. And Leyte province is very historical. So for those of you who are really into museums or just history in general, this is where General Douglas MacArthur landed and with the American troops. So that's a memorial to them. And the Filipino people really, really appreciate America and all that we've done with the Philippines over time and over history. So there's lots of museums, historical churches, lots of fun places to see. It's very, us Americans are very into historical cities with cute cottage stores and things like that, and that's a lot of what you'll see in Leyte. So thank you for enjoying my presentation. Hopefully you will consider going to the Philippines, maybe doing business there. But are there any questions?
I'm ready to go.
No?
Yeah, I'd like to go.
All right. Thanks.